Good morning. Well, hopefully, not to make things even more confusing, I'm going to take you through an understanding of the difference between whether you go with a Medigap policy called, supplemental policy, or you go with an Advantage plan. That's the purpose of this. It's pretty deep dive. As it's been already mentioned, though, it'll be available as video, it'll be available. Actually, the people in the room here should take a pass out of this presentations, a document. The people, those on the webinar, they can go to the website and get that same document. But I would advise you to take a copy of this presentation that's available. Okay.
Pages don't match up.
Yeah, I don't have a good record. Okay, and some of this is a bit of a repeat, but in more detail of what Paul was talking about. So once you're enrolled in Medicare, you've got to decide whether to purchase additional insurance coverage because Medicare is going to cover 20% of the approved amount. And that's key, the approved amount. As Paul also mentioned, you can refer to the Medicare and You booklet. Essentially, if Medicare covers it, then your insurance is going to cover it if you have for the 20%. But I'll get into detail as far as between Advantage and Medigap. Your choices to cover 20% are the Advantage plans, Medicare Advantage plans, also known as Part C, and Medigap plans, also known as supplemental plans. Part D drugs are generally included in an MA plan, pretty much every plan, but not in the Medigap plan. So if you have a Medigap plan, you're going to need to enroll separately in Medicare Part D. The drug plans in an Advantage plan and in a GAP plan are the same. They're both a Part D plan. It's just that in the case of Medigap, you've got to enroll separately in a drug plan. With an Advantage plan, like I just said, you'll get the drug coverage. For 2023, Medicare charges a per incurrence deductible for Part A services of the hospital $1,600 and an annual deductible for Part B services of $226. And I'll explain in a bit when you pay that Part A and when you don't. The type of plan and the coverage you choose, change the slide. The type of plan and the coverage you choose determine how these Parts A and B get paid or are covered by the policy. These amounts are in addition to the 2023 Part B premium of $164.90. Paul was quoting 170 something, which is the 2024 estimate. This is 2023. And it's paid directly if you take into Social Security. If you're not taking Social Security, you'll have to pay it separately. So if you deferred Social Security till beyond 65, you're going to have a separate bill for that you have to pay. No, you're going to have to actually make a payment. No, I don't think, maybe as far as the Chrysler pension, I don't believe so. No, I don't think so. It's a good question, but I don't. The question was whether that comes out of your pension check. I don't believe it does. I got people shaking their head no, so they know. Higher incomes, and Paul mentioned this, will pay a surcharge called IRMA, which stands for Income Related Monthly Adjustment. If Medicare covers a service, then a Medigap plan must cover the 20%. And the amount you pay will depending on which plan you choose, the ABC plans. But an Advantage plan, it must offer the same 80%. However, they have full control over that remaining 20%. Generally, they're going to cover that 20%, but they do have control over that. That is a difference that we'll talk about. It's generally not an issue, but it is a difference. It's not necessary for spouses to have the same insurer because Medicare is on an individual basis. Many Medigap plans do offer, though, a household discount if both spouses are insured by the same insurance company or if you're not living alone. So it depends on the policy whether or not you get that discount. But most of them have a discount if your spouses are both the same insurer. Okay, now I'm going to talk about the Advantage plan specifically. You're enrolling in a private insurance company with a private insurance company separate from Medicare. So essentially Medicare is handed off to an insurance company, the 80% and the 20%. There are no pre-existing condition limitations. You'll always have what's called guaranteed issue. So no matter when you go in or out when you can, or change plans on Advantage, there's never underwriting with an Advantage plan, never ever. Zero premium plans are available, and I'll get into that in more detail, with no no network restrictions, but their deductibles, co-pays, and out-of-pocket maximums really do depend upon the plan. And again, I'll discuss that in a bit. MA plans, Medicare Advantage plans generally include coverage for Part D drugs using the same rules as a standalone Part D plan. And I'll say it again later, but you got to make sure when you go into an Advantage plan, you also price your drugs. You don't want to find out that you picked a good plan for medical, but you got a very expensive plan for your drugs. You got to price them. You also got to check your doctors, but I'll get into that. Most plans, MA plans, include dental, vision, and hearing options with a specific allowance or reduced premium. So most of these Advantage plans now are including dental, vision, and hearing, which you'll hear me say Medigap does not cover. Many also offer free wellness programs, which can include a free gym membership. I mean, some of these gym memberships, the value of them is, well, maybe you know, it can be $100 and some a month. I mean, and they're offering those free. The perks are somewhat amazing these days. And some will include an out-of-pocket allowance for over-counter medical. So they're giving an allowance, and I'll get into the detail of that later, but they'll give you an allowance for aspirin, as an example, or other over-the-counter pills that you buy that aren't actually prescriptions. Many MA plans now include free in-home care and transportation and other benefits if you meet certain aid criteria and your doctor approves. So those are issues where you've got to get doctor approval. So it's not common that you'll get that coverage. It's not like long-term care. It's not to be confused with that. You should choose, I'm sorry. Remember to change my slides. Yell at me.
What's wrong?
Okay, you should choose an MA plan. Huh?
Do I have to bring the voice from the sky?
Yeah. You should choose an MA plan based on the type of healthcare service you need and their frequency. It's a tough choice, and you've got to look at, it really comes down to your usage and your needs. And I'll cover that. Unlike Medicare plans, the pricing is not based on age, sex, or health conditions. Your choice of an MA plan determines your coverage. You never have to worry about pre-existing conditions. Out of state, though, for some plans can mean out of network and could cost you more out of pocket depending on the type of MA plan you choose. But now, a lot of plans, and I'm going to give you an example of one, have nationwide networks, and you can go in, you don't have to be in network. It's all changing, and again, I'm going to detail that. Some plans charge the same in and out of network, provided the doctor accepts payment on the plan. That's key. In the case of Advantage plan, it's very important that the doctor participates in an Advantage plan. Very, very important. So you got to make sure I said check on your drugs, you got to check on your doctors. When enrolling, make sure your doctor is of choice is your insurer. I got to stop by the living and read my words. After initial enrollment in an MA plan, you still have 12 months to change to original Medicare and a Medigap plan with guaranteed issue. So if you went into an Advantage plan, you've got 12 months to say, this isn't working. With no underwriting, go to a Medigap plan. After age 65, you can join or switch plans during the annual election period. That's coming up October 15th through December 7th of each year. But you've got to be in that period to be changing that Advantage plan. Or you can also change plans during the open enrollment period, January 1st to March 31st of each year. And you can disenroll from your Advantage plan if you want to move to a Medigap plan. However, if you're doing that after 12 months, now you could be subject to underwriting. So if you're in an Advantage plan and you've gone past 12 months and you now want to switch back or go into a Medigap plan, then you would be, in most cases, subject to underwriting. And I'll explain underwriting in a bit. But you cannot move from Medigap plan to an MA plan. You cannot sign up for a new Advantage plan in this period. You can change plans, you can get out of the MA plan, but you can't sign up for it. You can only do that between October 15th, December 7th. Okay, I'll just add this on. There are special trial rights when you join a Medicare Advantage plan for the first time. You're eligible for this trial. If you joined a plan when you were first eligible, and that was the 12 months I talked about, or were an original Medicare enrolled in an MA plan for the first time and dropped a Medigap policy. This is why, and I'll probably say it 3 times, use a consultant, please. You've got to do that. There are just too many rules and too much to understand. Okay. I'm going to give you a brief definition of different plans, even though the PPO is probably the most popular. An HMO, which stands for Health Maintenance Organization, typically provides the most generous benefits, but it can limit you in terms of providers. Your primary care doctor must be in your network, and only they can refer you to a specialist also in the network. Except an emergency does not cover services outside your network, and not a good plan if you travel frequently. Again, that's all changing though, depending on the plan, because some of these plans are letting you go out of network. So again, you've got to look at the specific plan that you're considering. A PPO plan, which has even more flexibility, you can go to any primary care or specialist that accepts payment from the plan. That's key. Payment from the plan. The doctor has to be willing to accept payment from an Advantage plan. You don't have that issue so much with Medigap because pretty much any doctor who accepts Medicare accepts Medigap. The Advantage plans, although the networks are getting very broad and are letting you in and out, you've got to make sure that doctor is willing to bill your Advantage plan. As mentioned already, some plans are allowing you to go out of network with no cost penalty. Your choice of plan determines your network of Medicare providers and extra benefits. Your premium, your deductible, your copays, your out-of-pocket maximums are all determined by the plan. Over the years, Advantage plans have continued to add many benefits, and I'm going to show you that, like a zero premium, no in-network requirement, gym memberships, reduced out-of-pocket maximums. As a result, the percentage of those on Medicare enrolling in Advantage plans has moved up dramatically, and I have a chart that will show you that. Majority of people are taking the Advantage plan, but you got to understand the pros and cons of that. Important to know that plan benefits, cost, and networks can and often do change year after year. They've actually been changing and providing more, but understand the Advantage plan, there's more flexibility with these insurance companies that can do that. There's been a lot of issues where people are trying to get procedures and getting denied, and they get into a paperwork discussion and they win, but they got to go through the grief. In the case of the ARP plan, our United Healthcare plan, I think they aren't even requiring prior authorization. But again, you've got to look at the specific plan you're choosing. Plan providers and doctors can choose not to work with each other. That's what I was mentioning. Okay, now I'm going to go into the Medigap plans. So as I mentioned, Medicare pays 80%. Medigap plan is a private insurance designed to cover the 20% balance. And there's a Part A deductible that's covered. So that $1,600 deductible in most plans, you won't pay that. You only pay the Part B deductible, which is $226 for 2023. And that's with Medicare, that's not with the insurance. So if you were to start the year with a Medigap plan and you went to the doctor and he charged $100, you'll pay that $100 because as part of but you'll pay it, Medicare is charging it. and until you hit 226. After you hit the 226 with a Medigap plan, for most plans, everything else is free the rest of the year. Hospital, doctors, doesn't matter, except of course like long-term care. And like Paul mentioned too, there's some stuff that's done not affected by the deductible, like the annual checkup or some of the screenings. At age 65, when you are first eligible to enroll, you have guaranteed issue, meaning pre-existing conditions do not apply. We talked about that. After your initial enrollment in Medicare B, Part B, and a Medigap plan, you do have 6 months to change plans with guaranteed issue. So if you got into a Medigap plan, you weren't happy with it for whatever reason, or maybe you found a cheaper plan, you do have 6 months to change with no underwriting. Unless you enroll at age 65, when you are first eligible, the insurer may deny you coverage or charge a higher premium due to your pre-existing conditions. If you want to enroll later in a Medigap plan or change your existing plan, you may be subject to what is called medical underwriting. And again, we talked about the fact that if you got coverage with a spouse and you don't go into it till you're 68, that's not an issue because you had the credible coverage up to that time. But this applies to most people when they turn 65. Medical underwriting is a review of your medical history. You are required to answer a series of medical questions, including the discussion of the prescription drugs you take and why you take them. It's not like life insurance where that's pretty involved in the actual physical, but it's a series of questions. Have you been told by your doctor you need a surgery you haven't taken? Did you recently have heart surgery? Why are you taking this blood pressure medicine? Do you have high blood pressure? So your medicine, the drugs you're on that you have to tell them about, key some of the questions. Why are you taking Eliquis, which is for drugs or for heart, things like that. So you will be subject to underwriting if you try to move from Medigap plan later on. You don't take it initially. That's why this decision becomes somewhat involved because you kind of want to know up front whether or not you're going to go that route. Certain conditions related to heart cancers or pending or recent surgeries can disqualify you from changing to a Medigap plan, from an MA plan, or from your current Medigap plan to another one. Medigap carrier or other plan after initial enrollment eligibility. That is why it's so important to make the best choice when you have that guaranteed issue. And in some cases, if you have conditions, you can get a Medigap plan, but you're going to pay a higher premium. It's possible that certain carriers enroll by paying a higher premium. So I just mentioned that. Medigap plans have no open enrollment restrictions. You can change the plan anytime. So you're not governed by that rule. Advantage plans are where you can only change between enroll between October, December, or change between January and March. You're not governed by it. Medigap plans are wide open for change. Again, though, the key is, can you pass underwriting? And if your health deteriorates, you may not be able to pass that underwriting. The other key is if you're in an Advantage plan and you want to go to a Medigap plan and you can pass the underwriting, you can only get out of the Advantage plan during certain periods, like I just mentioned. So again, this gets I know it gets very confusing to understand. Medigap plan coverage is determined by plan codes, and Paul showed you those. They're standardized among insurers. That means every insurer's specific plan code has the exact same coverage. For years, the popular plan was a Plan F. There was no deductible, covered everything, blah, blah, blah. However, as of 2000, I think you had to be 65 to year 2000. So that plan is not even available unless you've got one and you're changing. That plan, though, has gotten more expensive because no young people, I consider 65 young, no young people are going into the plan, and therefore the people in the plan are older, and in some cases they can't pass underwriting and get out. That's a side point. But most people are selecting a G plan, which other than the deductible covers everything, that upfront deductible. The plan you choose will determine your premiums and copays. Premiums are higher than MA plans and greater by geographic area. that's a key point in that the plans are based on age, sex, female is less than male, tobacco use, your health, zip code, and county. Several cap their rates at a given older age. So in Michigan, for example, I have friends up north who permanently reside there. They're paying a lot less than me. And I like to change my mailing address, but I can't really do that. But my point being that metropolitan areas, it's more expensive for a Medigap plan than rural areas. The plans don't cover dental, vision, or hearing. I think they're talking about that, but as I understand it right now, they don't. I think you can get, in some cases, they have ancillary plans. In other words, they offer you a related plan if you're in a given gap plan. David Baum with Butler was telling me about that. Some offer what they call plus, and they're called plus plans. And they can include dental vision at an added cost. But generally speaking, a Medigap plan is not going to cover dental vision and hearing. Most states allow you to enroll or change Medigap plans at any time. Therefore, if you have an MA plan, make sure you can leave the Advantage plan. If you have an Advantage plan, make sure you can leave it during a disenrollment period before you sign up for a Medigap policy. And this is very key. Never, I can't remember to do that. Never cancel an existing policy without written approval of your new policy from the insurer. And I had a friend who actually did that, only to find out he forgot about a pre-existing condition and he'd already canceled out of his Advantage plan. He got it fixed, but it wasn't easy. Never, in writing, please, make sure you've got approval before you cancel the old one. Medigap plans don't cover Part D drugs. We've talked about that. When you enroll a Medigap policy, you have to sign up separately for a Part D plan. And I'm going to talk about that after the break. You get penalized permanently 1% of the national average premium cost, which is $31.50 for 2023, which is 0.315, 31.5 for each month, or $378 for each year without coverage. So as an example, if you waited 10 years to sign up, I'll use that because it's a nice round number, your premium would be $37.80 a month for life. And what I would tell you, if you're not on any drugs, go sign up for a $10 plan. Paul just told me about a plan that's coming out for next year. I think it's with Wellness or WellCare. It's zero premium. Sign up for Part D if you're in a Medigap plan. Sign up for Part D. You don't want this penalty. Several Medigap plans cover foreign travel with a 20% copay. And both Medigap and Advantage plans are now will cover emergencies, but there's a cap of $50,000 and you may have some kind of a copay. Again, it depends on the plan you choose, but you can, like a G plan, you do have coverage for foreign travel, but an emergency. Okay, that was kind of the easy part. I've done 2 charts now to try to put this, these are new, so bear with me. I've done 2 charts now to try to put the information side by side, and I'll try not to be prejudiced for one or the other, but let me get through it. So on the left-hand side, I've chosen a United Healthcare. It doesn't say that, but it's a United Healthcare I keep saying ARP, but it's ARP affiliated, but they use United Healthcare. Essentially, your insurer is United Healthcare. And I'm calling it a PPO Plan 1. And we have people who with experience with this plan, and I'm using it in my example. Under the Medigap column, I'm using a Plan G. That's the most popular one, and the only payment you make is that $226 up front, and then everything else is covered, including going for physical therapy. Okay, so I'm going to try to run through that. In the case of the Advantage plan, if you go into the hospital, you're going to pay for the first 6 days. And that's at 16, that's essentially that $1,600 Part A deductible. And if you have a G plan, you don't pay that. That 1,600 is covered. That is an advantage there. And the key point here is you go into the hospital 3 times, you're going to pay that 3 times. In other words, if you have a situation where you're in and out of the hospital a lot, Advantage plan is not necessarily the best for you. However, and I'm going to tell you in a minute, the most you're going to pay in this plan, you'll see at the bottom, is $4,500. But again, you're going to hit that number if you're in and out of the hospital. The Part B Medicare deductible of $226, which you see in the right-hand column, is covered under this plan. So you don't pay that Part B deductible. The drug premium is $0, whereas and I may back up a second. The annual premium in the right-hand side, if this is for a male at age 65, is around $1,428. Again, it can be higher, it can be lower, depending on the plan you choose. At age 80, it can get up as high as $220. It can get as high as $300. And so those are numbers that you're paying for the Medigap plan, whereas you have a $0 premium with the Advantage plan. So that's a consideration. But back to the Part D drug premium being at $0, you're going to spend between $150 and $360. But Paul just told me about a plan that has a $0 premium. So that really depends on which drug plan you pick. I think my drug plan is $12. It does depend. The national average is, as I quoted, was like $31, but it depends on your drugs because, and I'll get into that when I go through drugs. As far as networks, a participating doctor can be on this plan, this United Healthcare plan, the participating doctor can be in or out of network. They aren't charging a difference. However, you got to make sure that doctor accepts a Medicare Advantage plan. Whereas with the GAP plan, pretty much any doctor accepting Medicare is going to accept your GAP plan. There are no networks. Okay? You're in Florida, you're here, doesn't matter. And the max out-of-pocket cost with the Advantage plan is $4,500. There's no max out-of-pocket involved with a GAP plan, but you'll see, you add up your costs, and well, I'm going to get into that in more detail, but there's no out-of-pocket with that. And this is the bottom half of that slide, just to make it easier. It's already hard to read, just to make it easier to read. With the Advantage plan, your primary care doctor is covered. If you go to a specialist, you're paying $35. In the GAP plan, once you've met that deductible, it doesn't matter. Everything's covered. Everything's covered after you meet that deductible. Prior authorization in this plan, no, but in some Advantage plans, you do have to get prior authorization if you go see other than your primary care doctor. There's never any prior authorization required with a GAP plan. Dental, vision, and hearing, you can see the benefits there. Your dental is in this plan, there's a $1,500 benefit. There's a vision allowance of $150, and a hearing, there's $175 copay. And there you have to be in network with their specific hearing doctors. The dental, though, you also have to have a dentist who's willing to bill Advantage plans. In my case, my doctor doesn't do any insurance, so I'd have to take the bill and submit it. But if you have a dentist you like and they're not willing to do that, then you've got to deal with that as far as you got to handle the billing. And over in the right-hand column under Medigap, as we've talked about, dental, vision, hearing right now is not covered. Foreign travel, emergency, in both cases covered. I know on this G plan, there's a $250 deductible. There's a $50,000 cap on how much medical is covered in foreign travel, and both plans, both types of plans. The gym membership, as I mentioned earlier, is included, and I think the usage is 5%. So people get it, but they don't use it, and that's probably not too unusual. I mentioned earlier the over-account over-the-counter spending allowance, $50 a quarter, $200 a year to cover those sleeping pills or whatever else you're buying over the counter, aspirin, et cetera. That's a nice perk. And then the participation by Medicare nationally now is at 51%. In Michigan, it's even higher at 59%. Whereas with the gap plans nationally, it's 25, Michigan's 33. And the reason it doesn't add to 100 is you've got group plans, you've got people still covered by an employer, you got to put all that in there. But the fact that the Advantage plans are now over 50% is because of all these benefits that I just ran you through. A couple more comments in that regard. There's several concerns to be acknowledged. The Medigap plan has no cost beyond the 226 upfront deductible, sorry, and is accepted by any doctor nationwide accepting Medicare. While the MA plan may have a broad network of participating doctors, you can be in and out of network at no cost with this plan, but you do need to make sure your doctors will accept payment from the plan. You also need to ensure your drugs are included. The plan includes your drugs, the formulary. I'll talk about that in the next presentation. If you have a serious illness, example, cancer, you'll probably be out of pocket the maximum of $4,500 every year. I don't like to get too personal, but my wife has cancer and she would blow through that $4,500 in a heartbeat. Now, after $4,500, it would be free, but we're only spending with premium and all that a little over $2,000. So in that example, and she of course can never change gap, but in that example, the Medigap plan is the way to go. But you've got people at age 65 are very healthy. They think they know they can pass underwriting. I'm 80, I can still pass underwriting, I'm fortunate. And so they say, hey, I'm gonna take advantage of this savings. My risk, I'll call it a risk, is the most I'll pay is $4,500. But in return for going on an Advantage plan, I've got a zero premium, I got drug coverage, I got gym membership, I got all the stuff I just mentioned. And that's why you're seeing that participation now. But that becomes a personal decision. And that's why, again, I'll tell you, you got to use a consultant and understand all those ins and outs because it is confusing. And I'll say it, knowledge is power on this. And so it's confusing now because I'm throwing it at you. But as you get into it and read about it and use the pass out and go to our website, you'll understand it. You're very capable of understanding this, but it just takes time. Just takes time. It's still confusing. Well, it's very confusing. No, it's a shame it's that way. It's a shame it's that way, but it is. The out-of-pocket cost comparison between a G plan and Advantage plan is difficult. Medigap G has the annual 226. Whereas the Advantage has the zero premiums. That's what I was just talking about. Someone in good health at a young age may decide the MA plan suits them because of all the benefits, and or someone much older. So you got a situation where someone up in their 80s is paying over $300 a month for a Medigap policy. That's $3,600. And then you add on their drugs, not their drugs. Then you add on their drug premium, not their drug, because the drugs are the same. But you add on their dental, vision, hearing, they're approaching that $4,500, which is the most they're going to have to spend. So you got people older who cannot get out of their gap plan because they can't pass underwriting, are saying, hey, I'm going to the Advantage plan, no underwriting, and what's my risk? Again, but at age 65, it's a different thing. At age 65, you say, hey, I'm healthy, I'm going to take advantage of these savings. It's a difficult situation, decision. I shouldn't say situation. And again, if you went into an Advantage plan and after 12 months you said, hey, I don't like it, you can go back to the gap plan. So I think I got a chart here. This just shows you the growth. This doesn't have 2023 on. 2023, as I said, is at 51%. So you can see the growth in the Advantage plans. in people enrolling in Advantage plans. So I've already said some of this. Again, you can go to our website. It's called Understanding Medicare Advantage versus Medigap. It's under the on our new system there, on our new site is under the health insurance tab. Um, a copy of that though for you in the room is available. Even though I've got significant knowledge, I would not hesitate to use a consultant. And the two fellows that are here, David Baum, David Key, we've been using for a long time. It doesn't mean you can't go find your own consultant. These guys don't get paid. You don't pay them anything. It would be no difference if you went to an insurance company versus going to them. The difference is you go to an insurance company, you want to go talk to 10 insurance companies, or you want to talk to one guy who can talk to you about 10 insurance companies. So I can't stress enough to use a consultant, whether you use these guys who are very good. That's why they're here. That's why we recommend them.
There will be another presentation at the end with all the consultants.
I'm sorry. I'm getting carried away. Okay. That's it. I can take some questions, I guess. About Howard, I got some time left. All right. Yeah, Ron. Test. Yeah. No, you can go back to any, well, I'm sorry. So Ron's asking if he's in a gap plan now and he switches to the Advantage plan because he likes the advantages, so to speak. And now he goes back within 12 months and says, hey, I want to go back to my gap plan. If you go back to your old gap plan, it'll be at that gap plan's current rates. You won't lock in that rate, but you can go shop any Medigap plan. Oh, you're in F. Well, you'll definitely be cheaper when you go back because F's are F. The only difference between an F and a G is the 226. You divide 226 by 12, whatever the hell that is, $20 a month, and you'll find that a G plan is more than $20 cheaper than an F. There's no reason anymore to go into an F plan mathematically. So, and it's impossible unless you're like Ron, who already has an F plan. David, give me clarification. Oh. I'll repeat it. Yeah, what David is saying, if you were in Ron's case, he was in a F plan. Well, I think you can go back to your grandfather on your F plan. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. David corrected me. Yeah, if you're in an F plan now, you go to an Advantage plan, you want to go back, you can go back to an F plan. Someone else could not go to an F plan. It's not available to them. Okay, I said that wrong.
Any questions from the web? Any questions?
They are coming through. Does the $4,500 annual out-of-pocket for Medicare Advantage also include any of the out-of-pocket costs for vision, dental, and hearing?
Boy. Yeah, I think they're separate. Yeah, drugs are definitely separate. Some people say, hey, I'm spending $2,000 on drug. I'm going to get close to that 4,500. No. Those drug costs do not count towards that 4,500.
And the 4,500 is up to the companies.
Yeah, you can get a plan that's 3,600 and pay $28 a month. David, go ahead, please.
Some of them are, they say we cover these services in full, we cover these services up to a certain dollar amount. And those dollar amounts will not go to the medical out-of-pocket max.
Okay, so what?
Every company is different. You got to read them very thoroughly.
All right. What David Baum is saying, he's from Butler, is that you've got to look closely at that drug plan and make sure, or excuse me, dental vision and hearing coverage, and understand how it works in that specific Advantage plan. And it probably isn't, well, sounds like it's not part of the $4,500. As I said, drugs were not. I'm sorry, we got another one.
Yeah.
We got two Davids. Okay.
The only thing that goes for Medicare are things that are covered by Medicare, get Medicare coverage. Dental, vision, and hearing are not covered by Medicare. They cover by Medicare.
Okay. Yeah, the fact that dental, vision, and hearing are not covered under Medicare, they're also not covered under Advantage plan, therefore not part of the 4,500. And that was David Key. What you just saw was an example of why you use the consultants. I've been working on this for a long time, and I still don't have all the answers in the good detail. You got to use a consultant.
And I'll add my 2 cents. I went through this last year. There's a lot of fine print. Some of that fine print is on the websites of the different plans, but some of it isn't even on the websites. And you call the telephone number and even they don't know the answers to some of these questions. So that it really is caveat emptor. Also, and to kind of fill in a little gap that John talked about, in terms of the guaranteed issue or the underwriting, there's plan to plan underwriting if you decide to go from a Medigap from this company to that company. But they're all, and that's up to the company that you were going to in terms of what kind of underwriting they require or don't require. But also there can be underwriting within a certain company from going to A, B, C, G, whatever, within a company. And that's up to the individual insurance company as to whether they require, whether you can switch within a company plan to plan, or whether there is underwriting within that plan. Very, very, you really have to not only do your homework, but a lot of this underwriting also is based upon your own medical condition. So that if you're in good health, this really isn't a problem. But if you do have medical issues, these are things that you need to consider. Also, some of these things, and I think it was mentioned before, these decisions, once you do them at age 65 or when you start Medicare, really last for your lifetime. So that the issue, if you have some medical issues or you don't have medical issues now, what you do now might be impacted, or it might impact what happens to you when you're 5, 10, 20 years older. Unfortunately, that's just the way the games work. Also, you hear like under Obamacare and the ACA, Affordable Care Act, it said there is no pre-existing conditions. Well, guess what? They didn't change Medigap. So they changed the rules in for the US for all private insurance, but when you go under Medigap, though that they didn't touch back in 10, 12 years ago. So pre-existing conditions still impacts people age 65 and older if you go into a Medigap plan.
Would you, there's going to be a break so that someone might talk to a consultant. Would you introduce the gal from MMAP, the lady?
Yeah, we will.
No, but just to mention, she's here.
Okay, yes, there is someone here from, you have 3 consultants. We'll go, there's a presentation later, but we do have 3 consultants here you can talk to in the room. There'll be more detail on them later, but we have 2 companies or 2 people here that are from private insurance companies, and 1 person is here from the Michigan Medicare Assistance Plan, I think it's called, and that is a federally funded program that is for volunteers that offer assistance in this. There is no, so the insurance company or the insurance agents here do get compensation, not out of your pocket, but out of the insurance companies. The MMAP group here, and also there's a organization called SHIP, which is, MMAP is just for Michigan, and each state also has its a very, their own organization under this federal program called SHIP. They are not compensated either by you or by the insurance companies. They're done by volunteers like John and myself, who provide these kind of assistance on an individual basis. And you guys have been very good about the questions you've been asking, have been very generic questions. If you have specific questions about your own situation, that is why the consultants are here to go into your particular case, whether for you or your spouse. So
One more, I'm sorry, one more thing. Rich, our chairman, asked me. He asked me, how many here, 'cause some of you are already on Medicare, how many here have an Advantage plan? Stanley, okay. And do any of you have a Medigap plan? Okay, so in this room, majority have Medigap, but that's, yeah, how many are under 65? And two there, yeah. Okay, it's a good mix, all right. That was the intent. We want to, because what happens is people, even after they're on Medicare, need to understand. Go ahead, go ahead.
If you turn 65 in the middle of 2024, when is your enrollment period? Is your enrollment period?
Well, it doesn't matter when, you always have that period. Was it 3 months before, 3 months after to sign up? Yeah, it doesn't matter. It does matter.
that's the first month you turn 65.
Yeah.
Understood.
David?
Then you have count back 3 months, so it's June, May, April, March, May, and then also the month of your birthday is June, and then you have July, August, September. So you really have 3 months before, the month of your birthday, and 3 months afterwards to apply for Medicare.
So you have 7 months, 3 months before the month of your birthday and 3 months after. I'm just repeating it because you don't have a microphone. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, why aren't people on Medicare Advantage plans allowed to buy a supplement plan to cover the 20% copay that Medicare Advantage plans do not cover? And then comments about Congress.
No. The Advantage plan is covering the 20%.
Fair enough. Again,
Yeah,
question, there may have been a little confusion, so.
Yes, you can't have a Medigap.
Well, you can't have
Advantage
both.
And a Medigap plan.
No. Yeah,
He somehow thinks that Medicare Advantage still has a 20% copay.
no. The Advantage plan is covering the 20%. No, there's a payment. Some plans might have a $20 payment to the doctor. But the plan I just quoted, you don't pay anything. You pay $35, I think it was, to the specialist. But maybe that's the nature of his question. Oh.
You'll have a copy of it.
Or her. Okay. Okay.
Summarize that.
Well, the one point that was clear there is you're in one or the other. If you're going with a Medigap plan, you're staying with Medicare. If you go with an Advantage plan, you're leaving Medicare and you're going with a private insurance company that's covering both. But then David got into some other differences, which I'm not sure I can repeat.
I got one more.
Okay.
I will be turning 65 next spring, but my wife won't turn 65 for 2 more years. What actions do we need to take with the Chrysler health insurance for my wife next spring?
Well, she'll stay on Chrysler by herself until she's 65. She may not like the cost,
Uncle?
but she stays on Chrysler till she's 65. The husband, the spouse goes on Medicare.
And she will be paying a single rate as opposed to a couple rate. But they, Chrysler and Benefit Connect will manage that. It isn't a bad idea that a few months before that date occurs, that you call Benefit Connect and ask them how this is all going to work. The premiums also that you pay to Stellantis or FCA US will be prorated, so that the what you'll get, what you're charged on your premium, whether it comes out of your pension check or whether you pay out of pocket or out of your RICA, which is a whole nother thing that we'll talk about later. Those will all be prorated and adjusted at the time that it happens, but it's not a bad idea to call Benefit Connect ahead of time and ask them how that's all going to work in your situation.
Same question, only how does it affect Chrysler family plan where minors are covered? Again, you're still on the family.
I think it's a family plan, but then you're, and again, this is where Benefit Connect come in, because, you know, now you've got one adult and maybe some children still. How those premiums work, that's called Benefit Connect. And
They're still covered.
yeah. Oh, the kids will be still
Kids
covered.
are
Yeah.
covered.
Mhm.
Kids are
But
covered.
it's, your premium is for the family.
But if you've got a family and you're both age 65, if you've got grandkids or something like that, that's covered under a Chrysler plan, and you're now when both people are over 65, I'm not sure how Chrysler handles those dependents. Call Benefit Connect if you're that. It doesn't, that's not a typical situation, but if it affects you, talk to Benefit Connect and they'll be able to walk you through it. Yes,
Wow.
ma'am.
Maybe this question isn't really that important, but I'm assuming that if you're turning 65 in 2024,
Uh-huh.
you'll still sign up for Chrysler insurance that you always do.
Absolutely.
in that time period.
Yep.
And then when one of the people goes on to Medicare, and the spouse is not eligible yet, contact Benefit Connect just to make sure coverage doesn't lapse for that individual.
Mhm. Well, so coverage is, you know, knock on wood, coverage should not terminate for that second individual, for the younger of the two spouses.
You gotta repeat
But
that
I would,
comment.
but what I would, yeah, so the question is, when someone's turning 65 in a couple, how does this all work in the next year? And I would suggest when in the fall, when you sign up for, if one spouse is 64 and another spouse is 62, let's say, when you sign up, when you get the notification in October saying, okay, you know, it's open enrollment time, I would call Benefit Connect at that time and say, hey, I'm 60, you know, one of the two of us is 64. As of March of 2024, we're gonna, you know, one of us is gonna turn 65. How's that all gonna work? I mean, even if it's like November of 2024, I would call and talk to them in October of 2023 and saying, hey, things are changing in the next year for us. You know, please give us the process of what's going to happen and what the dollar figures are going to be, and they should be able to tell you.
Having gone through that,
Mhm.
Chrysler drops you like a hot potato when you turn 65.
Yeah.
They know your birthday. They cut you off.
I went through this exactly.
Mhm.
They send you the thing, you sign your wife and daughter up, the premium change, 0 pennies. You get paid, they take everything they can from you, and I still have to pay for Medicare. So I actually double paid for 2.5 years. So my family went home.
So all of this says, when you're turning, if any of the two spouses are turning 65 in the next calendar year, in the fall, call Benefit Connect and just ask them for your situation, what's going to happen, because some of this is all automated and gets taken care of, you know, in the month of or the, you know, the month that you turn 65. They should be sending you communication, but if by chance they don't have the right email address or things get lost in the shuffle, but that way you can plan of exactly what's going to be happening as best possible. The people on the telephone hopefully are knowledgeable about this. If not, that's why you also, and we'll tell you later, talk to the insurance committee and we can work through some of that for you. But the thing we will always ask you is you need to talk to Benefit Connect first for your individual situation. And if you get the runaround or you're not satisfied with the answer, we're kind of the helpline that you can contact for your particular situation.